Imagine growing up feeling like you were born as a mistake, constantly reminded by those closest to you that you're nothing more than a painful reminder of loss. This story hits home with themes of family rejection and the desperate need for recognition. I've always felt like I was born as a mistake, a painful label that haunted me from the very start. I was raised solely by my dad after my mother chose to step away from my life, and even her family couldn't be bothered. My dad, still grieving his late wife, had a brief fling that led to my arrival. I entered a world where two older half siblings, aged 11 and 9 at the time, resented my very existence. They made it clear that I was nothing more than a reminder of a loss they couldn't overcome, their bitterness stinging every time they reminded me that I was an error in our family's story. Despite everything, my dad always provided for me. On the surface, he seemed like the perfect parent, attending school events, ensuring I had what I needed, and even including me when his other kids wouldn't. Yet beneath that caring exterior, I sensed a cold distance. He clung to memories of his late wife, with wedding photos and mementos scattered throughout the house, and sometimes it felt as if his love for her overshadowed any affection for me. I couldn't help but wonder if he, like my half-siblings, secretly regretted that I was a part of his life. Then, 2 years ago, a turning point arrived in the form of my girlfriend and her incredibly supportive family. They welcomed me with open arms and made it abundantly clear that I deserved to be seen as so much more than a mistake. Their warmth and acceptance filled a void I'd long carried, and slowly I began to believe in my own worth. After turning 18, I made one of the hardest decisions of my life. I moved in with my girlfriend and her family to finish high school in a place where I felt valued. This decision wasn't without controversy. My extended family accused me of being ungrateful, and my dad even warned me against disrespecting my grandparents, aunts, and uncles. Determined to be honest about my feelings, I gathered everyone together at my grandparents' house. I opened up about the constant reminder I'd been forced to live with, that I was merely a byproduct of a mistake made after my mom passed away. I told them I wanted to be recognized for who I am now, not defined by the circumstances of my birth. Instead of understanding, I was met with cold, dismissive responses. My dad insisted that his grief was his alone, and I was advised not to take the bitter words of adults who were still grieving too personally. Even so, I remain steadfast in my belief that I deserve more than a role as a painful reminder of the past. So here I stand, questioning, is it wrong for me to demand recognition for the person I am today, rather than being forever haunted by the mistake of yesterday? Wow, a heart-wrenching journey from feeling unwanted to finding validation. Do you think it's fair to be defined by your origins, or is everyone entitled to a fresh start? Let me know your thoughts in the comments. When losing a job collides with the ever-polarizing world of politics, personal pain and political loyalties create a recipe for deep betrayal. This story challenges the limits of tolerance when the personal becomes political. Losing my job was devastating. I won't say which federal agency I worked for, but it was a career I believed in, a job I dedicated years to, only to be cut without warning. The experience left me feeling blindsided, betrayed, and struggling to process the sheer unfairness of it all. I've always considered myself tolerant, someone who can respect differing opinions, even political ones. I never supported the Orange Man, but I never let that dictate my relationships. I had friends and family who voted for him, and while we didn't always see eye to eye, I kept things civil. Some were open to genuine discussions. Others avoided politics entirely, and that was fine. But now it feels personal. Losing my job was one thing, but watching people I care about continue to support him, posting about him and VP Musk on social media like nothing happened, feels like a slap in the face. Some have even expressed sympathy for what happened to me, yet they still stand by the very person responsible. I just can't separate the politics from the people anymore. Lately, I've been thinking about cutting ties altogether. Part of me wants to make a statement, post something that lays it all out, wishing them the best, but making it clear I won't be in their lives anymore. Another part of me wonders if it would be easier to simply block them, move on quietly, and focus on myself. My in-laws are another hurdle. We've always had a great relationship, but the thought of sitting in their home, watching Fox News blare in the background, makes me feel physically ill. I know I need to have a conversation with them, but I dread it. Am I the a-hole for feeling this way? For considering walking away from people I've known for 20 years just because of politics? Or is this just an emotional reaction to losing something I truly loved? Tough questions here. When personal loss meets political allegiance, where do we draw the line? Would you cut off relationships over political differences, or try to bridge the gap? Sound off below. Sometimes it's the little things that reveal the big issues. A tiny, natural bodily function turns an intimate moment into a glaring red flag in this unexpected tale. It was just a tiny fart, a completely natural, unintentional little puff of air, but apparently to my boyfriend, it was the ultimate deal breaker. We were lying in bed, cuddled up under a blanket, just relaxing. Out of nowhere, my body betrayed me. I let out a small, harmless toot. The moment it happened, my boyfriend immediately jumped out of bed like I had set off a fire alarm. He started getting dressed, shaking his head in frustration. "Okay, I'm done," he said flatly, as if I had just insulted his entire existence. Still caught off guard, I blinked at him. "What? Stuff like this irks me," he shot back, his voice full of irritation. I was baffled. It was unintentional, but also completely natural. His response? "Why would you fart in the bed under the blanket?" He sounded genuinely disgusted, like I had personally attacked him with my bodily function. I just sat there, speechless, my heart sinking. It wasn't about the fart itself. It was about how fast he flipped from being affectionate to looking at me like I was some kind of problem. I had considered spending my life with this man, and now I was questioning everything over something as trivial as a fart. For context, it wasn't even a smelly one, just a soft little toot. But his reaction made me feel like I had committed a crime. Now I don't know what to do. Am I overreacting for feeling hurt? Or is this a huge red flag that I need to take seriously? Ouch! Talk about a blown-up reaction. Sometimes the tiniest things reveal deeper issues. Have you ever experienced a moment where a small incident exposed bigger problems? Let's chat in the comments. Divorce is messy enough, but add in an ex's new girlfriend, family loyalties, and a social media outburst that escalates to violence, and you've got a story that's equal parts shocking and all too real. I know I wasn't a perfect wife. Hell, I was the reason my marriage ended. I never should have gotten married in the first place, but hindsight is 20/20. Despite my mistakes, my ex and I have managed to keep things civil. We've been divorced for over a year and a half now, and while we aren't exactly friends, there's no lingering bitterness between us. What's more surprising is that his family, especially his mom and one of his sisters, have stayed in touch with me. It's not like we're best friends, but we'll grab a drink now and then, and his mom still checks in on me. She knows my own family is a mess, and she genuinely worries about me. I've told her she doesn't have to, but she insists. And honestly, it's nice to have that support. Enter my ex's new girlfriend. They've been together for about 6 months, and she's not handling things well. She's 27, and while the age gap between them isn't huge, he's pushing 40, she clearly has issues with the fact that he was married before. Actually, I'm his second ex-wife, which only seems to make things worse in her eyes. As their relationship has gotten more serious, she's become increasingly bothered by the fact that his family still speaks to me. At first, I found it amusing, until she started coming after me. She confronted me directly, demanding that I cut all contact with his family. I laughed in her face, but privately I told his mom and sister that I'd understand if they wanted to step back. Their response? A resounding no. They made it clear that they do what they want, and they weren't about to let some girlfriend of a hot minute dictate their relationships. That should have been the end of it. But no. Instead, she took the mature approach of airing out all my past mistakes on social media. Some of what she posted didn't just impact me, it affected other people who didn't deserve to be dragged into this mess. And now it's starting to rock some boats. Then, a few weeks ago, things escalated. I was out at a bar with some friends when she showed up with my ex. The moment she saw me, she lost it. She stormed over, livid, and demanded that I leave immediately. I laughed in her face again and turned back to my conversation, refusing to entertain her tantrum. Apparently, that was the wrong move. Because before I could react, she attacked me from behind, slamming my head into the bar top. Everything went black for a moment, and when I came to, she was being dragged away while someone called the cops. I declined to press charges at the time, but now I'm reconsidering. She's still coming after me online, still spreading her petty little vendetta. My ex is begging me to let it go, promising that he'll rein her in, but I don't think I should have to deal with this anymore. I know I wasn't the best person in my marriage, but am I really the a-hole if I go ahead and file charges against her now? When past relationships and new flames collide, things can get explosive. Do you think standing your ground is always the best choice, or should some battles be left behind? A beloved blue Pokémon lunchbox and an overzealous coworker. What could be more trivial? Yet sometimes, personal comfort clashes with workplace judgments in the most entertaining ways. I bring my lunch to work every day in a bright blue Pokémon lunchbox. I've had it for years, and honestly, I love it. It's the perfect size, keeps my food cold, and let's be real, it's kind of fun. I never thought much about it. It's just a lunchbox. Then, Matt joined the office. He's 35, a few years older than me, and apparently has taken it upon himself to be the self-appointed maturity police. At first, it was harmless. Little comments like, "Nice lunchbox, dude. My kid has the same one." Whatever. I laughed it off. No big deal. But he didn't stop. Every few days, he'd bring it up again. "Still rocking the Pokémon lunchbox, huh?" Or, "You ever think about getting a real lunch bag?" It started to get annoying, but I ignored him. Then last week, he pushed it too far. In front of a group of coworkers, he flat out said, "It's kind of weird for a grown man to be carrying around kid stuff, don't you think?" I had enough. I looked him dead in the eye and said, "Maybe you should worry less about my lunchbox and more about your own life." That shut him up. But now he's acting all cold toward me, and a couple of coworkers think I was too harsh. They say he was just messing around, and I shouldn't have snapped at him. I don't see why I should change something harmless just because one guy thinks it's weird. Am I the a-hole for standing my ground? A lunchbox shouldn't be a battleground, right? When is it time to put your foot down on something that's clearly personal? Let's debate. Are you team stand your ground or team just laugh it off? Abandoned as a newborn, later discovering a slew of unwanted relatives. This story dives deep into the scars of family neglect and the harsh words that come when the past refuses to stay buried. I was abandoned as a newborn, left in an alley with nothing to keep me warm, in a spot where no one was likely to find me. I wasn't placed gently, wrapped in a blanket, or left somewhere safe. I was discarded, thrown away like trash. The story made the local news. No one came forward to claim me, and no one knew who I was. Eventually, I was adopted by a loving family, and honestly, I hit the jackpot. My parents were amazing. They never hid the truth from me, but they made sure I always felt like I belonged. I had siblings, extended family, and a great childhood. I never felt like the adopted kid. I was just their kid. I never cared about my birth family. They left me to die. What was there to be curious about? That changed recently. I got engaged, and my fiancé and I want kids someday. Seeing the health issues in her family made me realize I have no idea what genetic conditions I could pass on. So I did a 23andMe test, purely for medical reasons. Unfortunately, I messed up when setting up my account. I accidentally left the option on to allow relatives to find me. And they did. Turns out I have 5 older siblings. My birth parents had them before they had me. They knew about me. They knew what happened. And now, after all these years, they suddenly wanted to talk. At first, they were somewhat reasonable. But when I made it clear I had no interest in hearing my birth parents' sob story, they flipped. They told me how much their parents regretted giving me up, how they would have come forward but were afraid of getting into trouble for abandoning me. They actually had the audacity to say I owed them the chance to explain. I blocked them, but they weren't done. They followed me to social media, making new accounts every time I shut one down. They insisted we were family, that I should be kinder, that I was the missing piece in their lives. They kept pushing, trying to guilt me into caring about their parents, the same people who threw me away like I was nothing. After 3 months of this, I snapped. I told them to f off. I told them to leave me alone. I told them I didn't care about their stupid parents. That only made things worse. They created even more accounts, outraged at how I spoke about mom and dad. I finally had to delete my social media entirely because I couldn't keep up with blocking them. Now, I'm wondering, was I too harsh? Should I have handled it differently? Or am I justified in telling them exactly where they can shove their guilt trip? Family can be the source of our deepest wounds. When old ghosts come back to haunt you, is a harsh reply ever truly too harsh? Share your perspective on whether you think this reaction is justified. A booked window seat, a stranger's unexpected behavior, and an in-flight meltdown. Sometimes even the skies can't escape human drama. I booked my seat months in advance. A nice window seat, perfect for putting on my headphones, zoning out to music, and enjoying the flight home. Nothing fancy, just something I picked for my own comfort. But when I boarded the plane, there was already a guy sitting in my seat. I politely told him, "Hey, I think you're in my seat." He barely looked up before saying, "Oh yeah, I was hoping you'd switch with me. I have a middle seat, like 5 rows back." "Yeah, no thanks." "Sorry, but I picked this seat for a reason," I replied. He sighed dramatically. "Come on, man. Have a heart." I shook my head. I'm just sitting in the seat I paid for. And that's when he lost it. He launched into a monologue about how terrible his life was, how everything had gone wrong for him lately, how he just needed this seat today of all days. Then, to top it off, he started crying. Loud, exaggerated sobs like a bad soap opera. The woman next to him looked extremely uncomfortable. A flight attendant finally came over and asked what was going on. Before I could even answer, he turned to her and wailed, "Is there no humanity left in people? This a-hole won't even let me have this one little thing." The flight attendant just blinked at him, then turned to me. "Sir, is this your assigned seat?" "Yes," I said. She sighed, looked back at the guy, and said, "Sir, please move." He huffed, stood up like he was some tragic victim, and stomped off to his actual seat. But as we landed, he turned to me one last time, looked me dead in the eyes, and said, "I hope you have a terrible life." So was I really the a-hole for not switching seats? Or was this guy just trying to guilt trip me into giving up what I had fairly booked? What a ride in the skies! Have you ever had a travel encounter that left you reeling? Let's discuss. Are you all about sticking to your rights, or do you sometimes bend to avoid conflict? When a favorite birthday cake becomes the battleground for past grievances, love and dessert collide in a conflict that's as sweet as it is sour. Last year on my birthday, my girlfriend ate the last slice of my cake while I was at work. Not just any cake, my favorite cake. The one my mom bakes from scratch for me every single year. I had specifically told my girlfriend I was saving that last slice for when I got home. When I asked her about it, she just shrugged and said, "Oh, I didn't think you'd care." No apology, no remorse, just complete disregard for something that mattered to me. I was annoyed, but I let it go. Fast forward to this year, my mom made me the same cake again. My girlfriend asked for a slice, and I looked her dead in the eye and said, "Nah, after what happened last year, this one's all mine." She laughed at first, thinking I was joking. But when she realized I was serious, she got pissed. "You're seriously holding a grudge over cake?" She snapped. I told her it wasn't about the cake. It was about the fact that she completely disregarded me last year. She didn't respect my feelings then, so why should she get a piece now? Now she's barely speaking to me, and a couple of our friends are saying I'm being petty. But am I? If she couldn't respect something as simple as saving me a slice last year, why should she get any this year? Aya? Is this all just about cake, or is there a deeper issue at play? When traditions are broken, do we stand firm or forgive and forget? When trust is broken and pain becomes too heavy to bear, sometimes the final act of defiance is simply walking away. This story of betrayal, abuse, and cold resolve cuts deep. I never thought my marriage would end like this. My wife and I had been together for 4 years, married for 2. 14 months ago, we had our first baby, and everything changed. She chose not to go back to work, and I became the sole provider, a responsibility I was more than willing to take on. But as the months passed, she became unrecognizable. She was constantly irritable, snapping at me over the smallest things. Everything I did was wrong, every decision a problem. She barely lifted a finger around the house, spending all day holding the baby and scrolling through her phone while I handled everything, working full-time, doing housework, and trying to keep us afloat. I tried to be patient. I tried to be understanding. I suggested therapy, support groups, anything that could help. But all I got in return was verbal abuse. I became her emotional punching bag, blamed for things I had no control over. And intimacy? Gone. Over a year and a half without so much as a genuine moment of affection. I wanted to leave. I hated my marriage. But I was scared. Scared of co-parenting. Scared of the backlash. Scared of breaking up my family. A small part of me held on to the hope that things would somehow get better. Then she made it easy for me. One night, she told me she was going out for drinks with friends. She came home at 4 a.m., wasted. As soon as she passed out, I checked her phone. And there it was. Texts between her and some random guy, heavily implying they had spent the night in a hotel together. I wasn't even mad. I was relieved. That was my out. No more guilt, no more doubts. The first thing I did was take a paternity test. Thankfully, our baby is mine. The moment I had the results, I confronted her. I told her I knew she cheated and our marriage was over. She broke down. She sobbed, begged, pleaded for forgiveness. She threw out every excuse in the book. Postpartum depression, past trauma, alcohol. She promised to do anything to fix it. She said she didn't want to lose our family. I didn't care. I already hated our marriage. The cheating was just the final nail in the coffin. We still live together, but I've completely cut her off. She keeps begging me to reconsider, promising to change, swearing she'll do whatever it takes. But I have no interest in salvaging this mess. Am I the a-hole for refusing to give her another chance? A bitter end to a painful chapter. Sometimes the only way to heal is to walk away. Do you think ending it was the only option here? Or could reconciliation ever be possible? Let's discuss. Family battles aren't just fought in courtrooms. Sometimes they erupt at home. This story of parental rights, bitter custody wars, and a defiant f*** moment is as intense as they come. I've put up with a lot from my ex and his wife, but this time I wasn't about to let it slide. Hank and I dated for 4.5 years and had 2 kids together, now 8 and 6. We broke up when they were still babies, and within a month, he was back with his high school sweetheart, Michelle. His family loved her. In fact, they never really accepted me to begin with. They even used to invite Michelle over while I was still with Hank. I should have left sooner, but I was young and in love. 5 months after getting back together, Hank and Michelle were engaged. That's when they hit me with the most ridiculous request I'd ever heard. They wanted me to sign over my parental rights so Michelle could adopt my kids. Michelle told me straight up that nobody liked the fact that my kids were mine. She said they'd never be fully accepted into the family unless I was out of the picture. Hank backed her up, saying it would be better for the kids to have a real stable home. I refused, of course. No way in hell was I giving up my children. Unsurprisingly, my kids are treated as second class compared to Michelle and Hank's 2 younger children. For years, there was a blatant effort to alienate them from me. Hank even lost some parenting time because of it, but after some court-ordered therapy, the judge restored his 50-50 custody, claiming it was in the best interest of the children. Never mind the fact that my kids hate going over there. Michelle loves to rub things in my face. She'll send me pictures of family events where my kids are clearly being ignored. I've wanted to block her for years, but my lawyer advised against it. If my kids are left with her while Hank is at work, I need to be reachable in case of an emergency. And yes, she has sent medical updates before, so I can't risk missing something important. Then, last month, Hank told me he wanted to pause child support payments for 16 weeks because they were saving up for a Disney trip. For him, Michelle, and their 2 kids. My kids? Not invited. I shut that down immediately. Apparently, that really pissed Michelle off because she actually showed up at my house while my kids were at school. She was ready for a fight, yelling about how selfish I was and how I shouldn't be getting any support for kids that she should be raising. I didn't let her finish. I told her to and slammed the door in her face. Now, she and Hank are relentless, texting me nonstop, threatening to take me to court, which my lawyer says they absolutely won't win. I know I'm in the right, but part of me wonders, should I have just ignored her and shut the door? Was I the a-hole for telling her to off? Family disputes over custody are never simple. Standing up for your kids is important, but when emotions run high, what's the right move? I want to hear your thoughts on this one. When the safety of a child is on the line, even long-standing family ties must be re-examined. This gut-wrenching story exposes the dark side of blended family dynamics and the lengths one parent will go to protect her child. I'm a 33-year-old mother to a 7-year-old boy. His father, my ex, is 35. Almost a year ago, I was granted full custody, and my ex was given only supervised visitation. The reason? The abuse my son suffered at the hands of his father's stepchildren, 2 kids aged 12 and 13. This wasn't an easy battle to win. It started 3 years ago when my son came home from a visit with bruises. That same day, my ex casually mentioned that he'd gotten married over the weekend. No prior conversation, no heads up, just, oh, by the way, I got married, and you need to pay half for the new clothes I bought our son because they got ruined. I didn't pay, of course, but I asked how they got ruined. He avoided answering. Later that evening, while giving my son a bath, I noticed the bruises. When I asked him what happened, he simply said, "The big kids did it." A few weeks later, my ex called, panicked, begging me to come over and calm our son down. Apparently, he was hysterical, inconsolable. When I got there, my son was still crying and begged to come home with me. My ex's new wife tried to brush it off, saying one of her kids had accidentally stepped on my son's foot and scared him. But in the background, I could hear one of the stepkids mocking him, calling him names, saying they just wanted to shut him up. Things only got worse. More bruises. More panic attacks, more refusal to go back. I confronted my ex, but he dismissed it, saying his stepkids were struggling with their mom remarrying and still grieving the loss of their dad from 4 years prior. He admitted they didn't particularly like him or our son, but he insisted it's not a big deal. I started documenting everything, the bruises, the emotional distress, the things my son told me. I reported it to CPS. My ex's family even witnessed some of the abuse. A few relatives sent me messages detailing what they had seen. The final straw? My ex and his wife left all 3 kids home alone for hours. His stepkids dragged my son outside and locked him in the garage, the same garage where all the dangerous tools were kept. That was it. CPS stepped in, and the judge ruled that my son was no longer safe in that environment. My ex lost custody, and his visitation was restricted to supervised visits only. The stepkids are not allowed near my son. Period. Now, my ex's parents are celebrating their wedding anniversary next month. They invited my son, but my ex, his wife, and their stepkids will all be there. I told them no. I even offered to let them celebrate with my son another time, just not at this event. They, along with my ex's older brother, are furious. They claim I'm being too strict, that I don't trust them to keep my son safe. But the thing is, I know they didn't keep him safe before. So, am I the a-hole for refusing to take that risk? This story cuts deep. When a child's well-being is on the line, protecting them sometimes means making hard decisions. What would you do if you were in this parent's shoes? A simple house tour turns into an internet scandal when a local influencer decides to stir up trouble. This modern drama shows how quickly social media can escalate personal disputes into legal battles. This isn't my story. I'm posting on behalf of a friend who isn't on Reddit. So my friend, 39F, and her husband, 44M, have been house hunting. They live in a suburb of a major metropolitan area. She's an architect, and he's an attorney. They're looking for a house with good bones that they can renovate to their taste. A couple of weeks ago, they toured a house that seemed like a great fit. It needed work, but the price was right, and they were interested in making an offer. Then, 4 days later, my friend got a text from a friend with a link to an Instagram reel. It was posted by a local mommy influencer, 35F. She clicked the link, and to her horror, it was a security camera video of her and her husband touring the house. The influencer had spliced together clips of my friend pointing out issues with the house, making it look like she was trashing the place. Then the influencer added commentary, calling my friend and her husband mean and nasty people, and declaring that she would never sell to them. And just to make things worse, their faces were fully visible in the video. My friend's husband, being an attorney, immediately drafted a cease and desist letter. It demanded that the influencer take down the video or face legal action. Instead of removing the video, the influencer doubled down. She went on a rampage, blasting them all over social media. Her followers, an army of mommy trolls, started harassing my friend and her husband online. They flooded the law firm's social media accounts. They even went after my friend's architecture firm. Their realtor was mortified. The seller's realtor was also embarrassed. And needless to say, they are not pursuing that house anymore. Some of their friends think they should just ride it out, that social media outrage always dies down eventually. But my friend and her husband aren't backing down. If the influencer doesn't take down the video soon, they're fully prepared to take her to court. So, AITA for threatening legal action? Or should they just let it go? Social media can be a double-edged sword. When online drama spills into real life, is it worth fighting, or should you just scroll past the chaos? I'm curious to know what you do. When favoritism and neglect in a family set the stage for explosive sibling conflict, the consequences can be devastating. This story of long-simmering resentment and a violent outburst will leave you reeling. For context, I'm a 31-year-old man, and my older brother, 40M, has 2 sons, Jack, 16, and James, 13. Jack was born when my brother was still in college. He wasn't ready for a child, and he and his girlfriend struggled for a while. Our parents helped, and I did what I could too. Eventually, he got through school, landed a good job, and married his girlfriend. Then they had their second son, James, and that's when everything changed. James was the planned child, the child they actually wanted, and because of that, they spoiled him rotten. Jack? He was just there, given the bare minimum. If our parents or I ever pointed it out, my brother and his wife would just brush it off, saying James deserved more because they were in a better financial position now. Jack never once complained. He was happy just seeing his little brother happy. But James? He was entitled. Everything had to be about him. If Jack ever got something nice, James had to have it too. And if he couldn't have it, he'd make sure Jack lost it. Over the years, I watched the light in Jack's eyes fade. Then came this past Christmas. I love both my nephews, Lent, but I refused to enable James's entitled behavior. So I bought both of them a Nintendo Switch. Jack had wanted one for years, and when he opened it, he was ecstatic. He hugged me, thanked me over and over again. He was so grateful. James? He looked at his Switch, scoffed, and said, "I wanted a PS5, not this." Then he threw it away. Whatever. I wasn't about to argue with a spoiled kid. I did my part. But a few days later, Jack showed up at my door, crying and shaking. Apparently, after Christmas, he had been having the time of his life playing The Legend of Zelda. But James hated seeing him happy. So James broke his own Switch, then ran to their mom crying, blaming Jack for it. And of course, their mom believed him. She took Jack's Switch, gave it to James, and grounded Jack. That was the breaking point. Jack snapped. Years of being ignored, mistreated, and cast aside, all that pent-up anger finally exploded. He grabbed James by the neck and choked him. His mom screamed, trying to pull him off, but Jack wouldn't let go. Through gritted teeth, he demanded James tell the truth. James, struggling for air, finally cracked. He admitted he had lied. Jack let go. James fell to the floor, gasping for breath, and Jack ran, straight to my apartment. A little while later, I got a call from my brother, demanding that I send Jack home to answer for what he did. Jack wanted to go back and face the consequences alone, but I refused to let him go without me. When we got there, I immediately noticed James. For the first time in his life, he looked scared. My brother started yelling at Jack, but I shut that down real quick. I turned to James, right in front of everyone, and asked, "Why did you do it?" At first, he said nothing, but I kept pushing, and eventually he admitted it. Jack was having too much fun, and it annoyed me. That's all it was. Jack being happy bothered him. Their mom, of course, jumped in to defend James. "He's just a kid," she said. "You can't blame him." I sent Jack outside, then turned to my brother and let him have it. I laid it all out, the way they had neglected Jack, how they spoiled James to the point of turning him into a terrible person, and how their blind favoritism had destroyed their own son's sense of self-worth. For the first time, my brother just listened. He didn't say a word. He didn't try to defend himself. He just stood there, staring at the floor. His wife tried to argue, but this time, he shut her up. Reality had finally hit him. I told him straight up, if he and his wife didn't want Jack, I'd take him in myself. Then I walked out with Jack by my side. Now, Jack is staying with me. He's playing his games, studying, being a normal, happy kid. His mom has been blowing up my phone, accusing me of favoritism and meddling in their family affairs. I ignored her. I haven't heard from my brother yet. Maybe he's still processing everything. But for now, Jack is safe. And if his parents don't want him back, I'll be here for him until he can stand on his own. So AITA for standing by him. Family favoritism can destroy lives. This explosive tale makes you wonder how much neglect is too much and when love should triumph over toxic dynamics. What do you think? Was Jack's outburst understandable? Let's hash it out below. Intimacy can sometimes bring up unexpected questions. When a casual shower moment turns into a controversial conversation about inviting a third party, the boundaries of comfort are truly tested. My boyfriend, 23M and I, 19F, were in the shower together after, well, getting at it, when out of nowhere he asked me a question I never expected. Would you ever let another girl join in? At first I thought he was joking, so I laughed and played along. With who? I asked, expecting him to say something ridiculous or just tease me. But instead, he casually said, Olivia, she's pretty and I think she'd like it. I froze. Olivia, 18F, is one of my closest friends. She's also gotten to know my boyfriend pretty well since we all hang out sometimes. The last time we saw her was at her birthday party at the beach. I tried to brush it off, but something about it just felt wrong. So I asked him why he even thought of her specifically. He just shrugged. I figured you'd feel more comfortable with someone we both know, and I think she'd be into it. I told him that the whole thing was making me really uncomfortable. He rolled his eyes and said, "It was just a question." But I kept pushing. Why, Olivia? That's when he got real honest. He admitted that it was just a passing thought, but then when he pictured her, it stuck. He thought it would feel good with her, and he genuinely believed she'd be down for it. At that point, I just felt gross. I told him again how uncomfortable I was, but he kept brushing me off, saying I was overreacting, and it was just a dumb hypothetical. Now I can't stop thinking about it. I don't know if I'm making too big a deal out of this, but the thought of him thinking about my best friend like that, imagining being with her, just doesn't sit right with me. I keep wondering, has he always thought about her this way? Would he have ever brought this up if I hadn't asked for a name? I don't know if I'm being dramatic, but part of me wants to break up over this. So, AITA? Am I overreacting? Or is this as weird as it feels? An unexpected shower conversation that leaves you questioning boundaries and trust. Would you accept just a thought or draw the line immediately? Let me know how you'd handle this delicate situation. In a family where every celebration revolves around twins, one teenager's struggle for attention cuts deep. This poignant tale of neglect and sibling favoritism challenges the fairness of family dynamics. My parents had a hard time having kids, so they went through fertility treatments. The result? 2 sets of boy-girl twins who, despite not being identical, look identical. The older twins are Max and Amy. The younger twins are Jace and Lacey. And then there's me. I was born 6 years after Jace and Lacey. A singleton, a complete disappointment to my family, even though no one ever says it outright. Everything in my family revolves around the twins. Their birthdays? Huge celebrations. Christmas? All about how special it is to have 2 sets of twins in one family. School plays, sports, report cards, graduations. Everything was a big deal because, as my family loves to remind me, it's so rare to have 2 sets of twins who could pass as identical. Meanwhile, I was just there. My birthdays were barely acknowledged. Christmas presents? Nowhere near the level of my siblings. Report cards? No one cared. If I had a big game or a school play, I'd be lucky if even one parent showed up. I was never as close to my siblings as they were to each other. They had their twin bond, their inside jokes, their special attention from the family. They loved being the center of it all, and I learned pretty quickly that I was just an afterthought. Fast forward to now, I'm 17, about to graduate high school. A few weekends ago, the topic of my graduation came up. My siblings are all busy with work or college, so they can't make it. My extended family's response? Well, I guess we don't need to plan around it then. I told them I still wanted them there. They just brushed me off. You don't need anyone there. I asked why they got all this love and attention for their graduations, and they gave me the same tired excuse. Because it's such a big deal for twins. When you have two sets of twins in the same family, that's something to celebrate. That's when I snapped. I told them, it's not my fault I wasn't born a twin. Why should I be ignored because of something I had no control over? My grandfather immediately scolded me. At 17, you shouldn't be jealous of what other kids get. And as a boy, you shouldn't be so emotional about this kind of stuff. That just made me angrier. Even teenage guys want to feel like they matter. The whole room got quiet. Then one of my aunts chimed in, saying I was gaslighting the family. My grandma, parents, and a few other relatives piled on, claiming I was emotionally manipulating them by making them feel guilty. Now they want me to apologize, not just for what I said, but for even bringing it up in the first place. They keep insisting that no one ever said it was my fault I wasn't a twin, but actions speak louder than words. So, AITA? A raw, painful look at how family favoritism can make you feel invisible. When is it acceptable to demand recognition? I want to know. Are you the type to fight for your worth, or do you let it slide? Share your insights below. What a journey through the messy, complicated world of relationships and family dynamics. From feeling unwanted to standing up for what matters, these 15 stories leave us with a lot to chew on. Which one struck a chord with you the most? Were the actions justified, or did they cross the line into nastiness? Drop your comments, share your opinions, and let's keep this debate alive. If you enjoyed this episode, hit that subscribe button and join us next time for more hard-hitting, thought-provoking stories. Until then, stay curious, stay kind, and remember, it's always your call, nice or nasty.